So you answered the first question. Our first question, just so you know, was how and why did you initially get involved with the JCC movement? So there you go. Okay, so our second question for you tonight, why do you think JCCs are so important, and how has this informed your decision to invest in the JCC movement so significantly?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I know I have a list of the questions. Here's what I think about the JCC. In the Jewish/general community, because all the JCCs I know, I'm sure, I don't know them all. I think there are 150 or so in America. But I know the JCC in Cleveland the best. And the JCC has as its membership and its users about 70% Jewish and 30% non-Jewish. There are JCCs that are 50-50. There are no JCCs I know about that are 100% zero. And in the smaller communities, the JCCs have a larger participation of non-Jews simply because of the demographics in the community. And those JCCs are able to serve the entire community because they can serve the Jewish community and the general community, but the critical factor is getting substantial membership of the general community, or you can't serve anybody. Anyway, the JCC movement, if you just take the name Jewish, and it's sponsored by the Jewish community, mainly for the Jewish community, but not exclusively for the Jewish community. Just as YMCA is not exclusively for the Gentile community. Jewish, the big word to me, community. You know, there's so many things wrong in the world, and yet there are so many forces that are positive, that work to make life sort of in balance and worth living. And there are certain forces, religious institutions, Jewish community center, I mean, there's a long list. And these are forces fighting all the bad things that are going on in the world. And there are a lot of bad things going on in the world. Not just evil, but, you know, it depends on how you want to define that. And what are the constructive forces that make life worthwhile? The Jewish Community Center is one of those. Jewish Community Center. It's a center for everybody. Jews, non-Jews, religious, non-religious. There aren't many organizations that have those credentials. And a city without a strong Jewish community center is not the same as it could be. And I encourage you to think big, whatever that means, appropriately. But think big. Now this is a successful building, successful process. I happen to like your director. It's not a final decision. But I think she cares. I met the president, only for a few minutes tonight, but I think she cares. This is worth fighting for. A good, thriving, appropriately sized Jewish community centers for Asheville will be a blessing on all of us, all of you. So I'm getting carried away. I don't want to get carried away. It's just that I've spent so much of my life connected with this, and I've seen what it can do. I've seen its possibilities. And I drove past a beautiful new synagogue here. I just met the rabbi. What you need is a beautiful JCC. It costs money. It's a problem. It's a challenge. But it's a gift to yourselves, and it's a gift to your kids and grandchildren and the future generations. So you have a JCC, and I just will do everything I can to help you make it a better JCC. Jen, hold up your hand. As representing, actually works with my daughter Amy in Amy's philanthropic world. So that's my answer. And by the way, I wish you'd hold up your hand and ask me something if it's not clear. because these questions are pretty formal, and I know all the answers. And if you ask me a question, you might stump me. Oh, there's a volunteer.
Say more about what you mean by a strong JCC being good for the whole community.
What I would advise the board, are you on the board? Okay, what I would advise the leaders is to get the best advice you can get from the national organization, which is very successful, very high quality. Yeah, I'm a board member, yes, I'm a past president, but I'm not saying it out of loyalty. The Jewish Community Center, and you have a wonderful regional consultant here, whom some of you have met, I'm sure, right, Janet? Yeah. Find out from the national the best experience and benchmark against the community with the same demographics. Find out what works, what doesn't, and some communities have made a mistake. Find out what doesn't work, and you can do that. You know, it's just a matter of having the will to find out what would be ideal. Maybe you can't afford it. Maybe you only do half of it. So the financial thing is, you know, it costs money to rebuild that temple. I asked the rabbi, I think it's not confidential. Any of you belong to that congregation? Yeah. I think it was around $4 million, she thought. Well, that had to come out of somebody's pocket. That was maybe a new car somebody didn't buy. I mean, you don't get $4 million without some sacrifice. But there it is. And that's going to be there 50 years, or however. And that's to me, when you take money out of your own pocket and end up with that temple, that's how you light candles in the darkness. There's a lot of darkness out there. And light as many candles as you can in your life. And the candle shining will light your life. Well, this is my personal opinion anyway. Light as many candles as you can. Find out, and Leo will help you, and the president, and all help this community. Find out what would be ideal. Get as close to it as you can, but you have to know ideal. You have to know what it is. And benchmark against similar good communities. You don't want to benchmark against, you know, failing communities. All that information is available to you. Long answer, but a very good question, because it enabled me to say something I'm glad I said about where I think you guys should go.
Okay. So the next one is about the Pew study.
Oh, the Pew study, yeah.
Yes. What is your reaction to the recent Pew Research Center report on the state of American Jewry, particularly regarding concerns around the assimilation of younger generations of Jews?
Yeah. Well, the trend lines of, say, synagogue affiliation are going in the wrong direction, are going down. What I think is the wrong direction, are going down. In my generation, you can figure out how old I am. In my generation, we were heavily influenced. I was heavily influenced by these events. And I think it probably encouraged me to be more concerned with lighting candles for others than I would have otherwise been. One was the Holocaust. I grew up in the 1930s. One was the Holocaust, and I had 27 relatives, and my parents were born in Poland. 27 relatives burned, and I never knew, all we knew was that they stopped communicating with us. We never knew exactly what happened. And when I was in Israel one time, in Tel Aviv, I went to a museum where they actually had recorded an awful lot of this stuff, and I got a printout. I gave the information to one of the staffers there, and they punched it into a machine, and I got a printout. The name of their community was Nova Sanch, Novasanc. I think it's pronounced Nova Sanch. And it went something like this. It was just a few words, and it hit me right in the gut. I mean, it was like being punched. on August 20, the dates are not right, but the month is right. On August, I think 22nd, 1942, the Germans sent trucks into Novi Sad. All the Jews were taken to Auschwitz and burned. That's it. Those were the words. Maybe not precisely that, but sort of that. And I felt like I was punched in the stomach. It's the first time I really heard what happened. So that's number one. Number two, the State of Israel, 1948. My God. If these Jews on the, what's the name of the boat that sailed around and no one, they couldn't land, they had 600 Jews on it and no one would let them dock. They left Holland or Rotterdam and they went to London, they went to America, they went to a bunch of countries. I can't think of the name of it. They finally had to go back and the Jews got off at Rotterdam and got burned. No country would take the Jews. So here it's, there's a country called Israel that's brand new, and anybody who's a Jew had permanent acceptance, and the expression never again was born. Now that was a searing, S-E-A-R-I-N-G, that was a searing experience for all of us. Relatives burned, there was no place they could go, no place wanted them. And then there's the State of Israel that says everybody who's a Jew can be admitted without any papers, nothing. Then maybe another event that impacted me, and I'll stop with this and then I'll finish answering the question, or answering the question about the Pew Report. The 6-Day War. In 6 days, this small new country beat Egypt, Jordan, I don't know who all was involved, armies of much greater size, more munitions, whatever. And I know I myself, in Cleveland, by my non-Jewish friends, I was a foot taller. In fact, I won't spend all night on some of these stories, but I'm enjoying this. They would come up to me and they would say, how did you guys do that? You know, I was Jewish, so therefore I must have been part of it, right? How did you guys do that? So my age group, and those maybe a little older and a little younger, grew up with heavy influences to be Jewish and to be affiliated and to work for the betterment and strengthening of the Jewish community. Now, if you fast forward to today, the Holocaust is history. It's like reading about Charlemagne. You remember when you were in high school or junior high school, you read about Charlemagne or the War of 1812 or this or that? History. I lived it. The formation of the State of Israel, never again, Jews not being able to get off the boat, no one wanted to take them. It's history today. The 6-Day War, 1967. That's almost 50 years ago. If you're 23, that's history. That's one thing. Now I'll give you the other thing, which is that's some part of the reason that I think you see these trends. And the last thing is anti-Semitism is now no longer on the table. It's below the table. I mean, you can work for any company in America and be Jewish. You can be president of DuPont if your name is Irving Shapiro. The president of the Bank of America, when it was still a West Coast bank, that bank was notorious for having no Jews anywhere, no tellers, no guards, no floor sweepers. In 1980, the president's name was Richard Rosenberg. So anti-Semitism is down. Intermarriage. I mean, Gentiles wouldn't let their kids marry a Jew. Now, Jewish husband's pretty good. Maybe a Jewish wife is pretty good. So you don't have the Look, intermarriage when I was real little was a Jew from Poland marry a Jew from Lithuania. I mean, that was intermarriage. I'm not kidding. You know, this is such a young crowd, but this goes back a while. So the Pew Report is simply recording what has to be. Water seeks its own level. It's good news that Gentiles want to marry Jews. The fact that there's so much of it, you can decide good or bad. Those trend lines don't bother me. And I'll tell you something else. I'm still very active in my community as a volunteer, and our depth of ages down to the high 20s and early 30s, very high. It's probably the same thing is true here. I don't think that's bad news. I think in the end that's probably good news. But we're not losing them. They're just different.